Hi, welcome to Garden City Church KL Online. We hope this message equips you and gives you encouragement to live out your faith boldly and practically. If you want to learn more about our church, visit our website at www.gardencitykl.com or click the link in the description below.
Well, this morning I want to start off as we jump in, as we are getting to the close of John's Gospel in chapter 21. I want to share something about our family. You know, there's lots of things that my wife loves about me. There's so many things my wife loves about me, and we would be here all day if I were to make a list of all the reasons my wife loves me. But maybe her favorite thing out of all of the things is that she'll come to me and tell me that I need to work on something, that there is an area of my life that I need to grow. That's surprising, I know. The pastor has to work on something, but there's actually lots of those areas. As a husband, as a father, and even as a pastor. And oftentimes she'll keep reminding me, sometimes for years, because I'm so hard-headed. I'm really stubborn. And then what will happen is she'll say this thing to me sometimes for years, and then one random day a friend or someone will come along and say, Peter, you know, you really should work on this thing. You can fill in the blank. It's the exact same thing that my wife has been telling me for years. But for whatever reason, when this other person says it, it'll finally register to me, and it'll make sense to me, and I'll understand it. I don't know why. And so what I'll do is I'll go to my wife and I'll say, Grace, this person came to me and said this thing, and I think I really need to work on that. And my wife will just look at me confused, and she'll say, are you serious? You think this is the first time you've heard this? I've been telling you for years. And have any other husbands been there before? Am I the only one? I find myself in that place all the time. All right, it took one more time for it to finally make sense to me. But at least it did, right? That's what counts. It finally registered to me and it makes sense. Today we are in John chapter 21. This is the last chapter of John's Gospel. So if you have your Bibles, I invite you to turn there. And in John chapter 21, we are going to get echoes of familiar stories from Jesus' ministry in the past. Stories that should have reminded, or events that should have reminded the disciples from the first time, but they needed another go-around. They needed another chance to put things together. John chapter 21, starting in verse 1, says, After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Now, first, one of the things that you see is he revealed himself again. Jesus has shown himself at this point on multiple occasions after his resurrection. He has revealed himself to Mary Magdalene. He's revealed himself to the disciples and to Thomas and the disciples in John's Gospel. And in other places, in other Gospels, we know that he met two of his other disciples on the road to Emmaus. And Paul will tell us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that he appeared to over 500 at one time as well. And Jesus has done this. He has repeatedly revealed himself as proof that the disciples weren't making up Jesus' resurrection. Right? The Jesus' disciples weren't missing Jesus so badly that they wished that he was still alive, and so they just made up some story. See, there were not only multiple eyewitnesses, hundreds of multiple eyewitnesses, there were also multiple occasions where Jesus revealed himself as alive after he died and was buried in the tomb for 3 days. See, Jesus' resurrection is as verifiable and undisputable, if not more, than any other event in human history. Verse 2, Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Now, you kind of feel bad for the two disciples who didn't get named here, right? It's like when someone posts a group picture on WhatsApp and only tags a couple of people and then happens to leave you out. Imagine how you would feel if you were these other two disciples. Verse 3, Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. They said to him, we'll go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. So, okay, Jesus is alive at this point, but what now? Peter's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so I guess I'll just go fishing. Do you see what's happening here? Peter's not just killing time or going fishing because he's bored. Peter was actually going back to his life before Jesus. Before Jesus had called him to follow him, to become his disciple, Peter was what? A fisherman. So many of you have felt this pull in your life before, or you're even feeling it now. You've committed your life to Jesus to follow him, but if you were to take an honest assessment of your life and whether it looks any different at all after putting your faith in Christ, you probably say, not really. You're constantly feeling a pull to your old self, to your old addictions, your old habits, your old ways of life. And why is that? For Peter, why was it? He had already seen and interacted with the resurrected Jesus. So why wasn't he going out to tell people about it? At this point, he's not hiding in fear anymore, but why is his life not radically changed? See, for Peter, there was something that was missing. There was something Peter needed from Jesus. Verse 4. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" Now, this probably should have caught the disciples' attention, because what grown man is going to call out from the shore and say, "Hey, kids," right? It's kind of offensive for a grown man to call other grown men little boys, children, right? And then they answered him, "No, we caught nothing." And he said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So this should have really tipped them off, because this scene has already happened before in Luke chapter 5, when Jesus first called his disciples to follow him. The disciples are out all night fishing, but they catch nothing, so they bring the boats in, they bring the nets in, and then Jesus comes along after they toiled all night and caught nothing. He gets into their boat and says, "Let's go out again. Go out a little bit and cast your net to the side," and they catch so many fish that the net begins to break. And Peter, at that moment, realizing that Jesus was not an ordinary man, falls to his knees and says, "Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man." And after that, from that point on, they would leave everything to follow Jesus. No more fishing for these guys. Let's keep reading. And so they cast it. John chapter 21. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, "It is the Lord." And now the disciples finally have connected the dots and know that the man standing on the shore is Jesus. Here's the first point for today. Our power is in Jesus' power working in and through us. Any power that we have is not of ourselves, but it is Jesus' power working in and through us. Here you have a bunch of fishermen who were experts. This was their job before they left everything to follow Jesus, but they have a big problem. They can't catch any fish. Right? They're supposed to know where to go out to drop their nets and how to catch the fish and lure the fish in, but nothing. This shows us that even with the gifts and skills that God has given us, we can accomplish nothing on our own apart from God. And it's especially true when it comes to pleasing God. Scripture tells us that even our best deeds before God, they are unacceptable. They are dirty and filthy before Him because we are sinners. See, we are completely and utterly helpless on our own and dependent on God for everything. And so God chooses us, and He uses us not because of our strengths, but because of our weaknesses, because of our inabilities. And it's in our weakness that God makes His power known. He makes His power known. It's like when my kids were younger, oftentimes I would pretend like there would be an Amazon package. We don't really have, like a package from Lazada or Shopee showed up at your door. And oftentimes I would invite the kids because they'd be excited that there was a package. And I would tell them, "Oh, it's too heavy for me to lift. Can you give me a hand?" And so the 4 kids will huddle around the thing, and I'll just give it a, "Oh, you need to help me a little bit more. I can't lift this box." Right? And so they all get excited and they help me lift the box. I'm like, "Oh, we finally got it." Right? In that moment, how much did the kids actually help me pick up that box? Like 0%. And that is essentially what God does with us. He doesn't belittle us, but he invites us to join in his work. But God is the one who is doing all the heavy lifting. He is the one working his power, not us ours. And so you remember back in John chapter 15 when Jesus tells his disciples, you can do nothing apart from me. Yes, God has gifted us and given us abilities to use in life and ministry, but let's not fool ourselves into thinking that anything that you have accomplished, anything that you have, anything that you hope to do is because of you. Because every breath in your lungs, your very life is in the hands of God. And that's true of us as a church as well. Anything that we've done of any value here is not because of me. It's not because of Pastor Eric or the staff or the elders or any ideas or strategies that we have. It is only because the power of God working in and through us. And that's for anything that we see happen, any meaningful ministry and fruit at Garden City. Let's keep reading. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from land, but about 100 yards off. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to swim fast somewhere, I don't put on a hoodie. Right? If anything, if you want to swim faster, you take your clothes off, right? But here's Peter. He puts his extra clothes on that makes it harder for him to swim, and he jumps into the water to swim to shore. Like, wouldn't rowing with a bunch of other guys be faster than swimming 100 yards? That seems like kind of a far way. Or if Peter was smart, he would have said, hey, Jesus, we got a lot of fish. Just call us to shore and we'll just magically get there, right, by your power. Or if he was really smart, he would have said, Jesus, remember that time you let me walk on the water? Let me do that again, and this time I'll run to you. Right? Instead, what you see Peter here doing is exerting so much effort. Look at how hard he's working. All the while, verse 9, when they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place with fish laid out on it and bread. So everything was already in its place. It was made ready by Jesus. He didn't need any of Peter's efforts, but verse 10, Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have just caught. Jesus is inviting them, drawing them in. Verse 11, so Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. And Jesus said to them, come, have breakfast. Again, Jesus is inviting them in. Now, none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. Number 2, our rest is in Jesus' finished work for us. Our rest is in Jesus' finished work. Jesus clearly doesn't need our help, but he invites us to be a part of his work. He tells the disciples, bring me what you have, not because I need it, but come and have fellowship with me because everything's already taken care of. You can rest and enjoy me. You see, Jesus' invitation to Peter and the disciples, his invitation to us, is to rest in him. Jesus doesn't need anything from us to prove our love for him. You don't need to work hard or at all for his approval. You already have that fully in Jesus if you put your faith in him. That's why he would go so far as to do the unthinkable in becoming one of us 2,000 years ago and to die for us. Why else would he? If we had to earn his coming, Jesus coming to die for us, he would never have come. You see, when Jesus said on the cross, it is finished, that meant that there was nothing left for us to do. There was nothing left in Jesus' work and ministry that we needed to add and make up for. See, it's resting in Jesus' love and his finished work for us that then sets us free to serve him and to work freely out of joy, not out of obligation or to prove or earn anything. Now, what is the significance of 153 fish? Lots of people have different ideas about why were there 153 fish in the net. Some people would say, if you look at the Hebrew grammar and the numbers, that it clearly spells out God. Other people will say, well, it's a divine work of God because 153 is a triangular number. I had to Google that because I didn't know what that meant. Basically, it meant if you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way to 17, then you come to 153, and that's the total. When you take 10 and 7 together, the 10 commandments and the 7 gifts of the Spirit, you get 17. And so this is clearly pointing to a divine work of God. Others have speculated that there was 153 species of fish in the water, and so that must represent all the nations being caught and being brought to Jesus, and the net's not going to be torn, so everyone is going to be able to make it. Or the last one is there was just 153 fish, and that's probably what I think. Verse 15. And when they had finished breakfast, see, Jesus was not a ghost. Jesus ate with them. Jesus is not just a hallucination. In John chapter 20, the last chapter, we saw that Jesus has a physical body, but he has the ability to walk through walls. He still has his scar in his side and in his hands, but he's able to walk through these walls and eat. So he is a real person. It's not just some kind of apparition, right? And then you see him eating here. This scene that Jesus has with his disciples on the beach is a foreshadow of what all of eternity will be like. We will be with Jesus at the marriage supper of the Lamb, eating and enjoying with Jesus, heavenly foods, right? Celebrating his worthiness for all of eternity for the work that he has done in saving us. Verse 15, continuing, it says, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Another invitation from Jesus to Peter. Number 3, our confidence is in Jesus' gracious love. Our confidence is in Jesus' gracious love. Notice how this setting on the beach around the charcoal fire is familiar. Remember what else happened around a charcoal fire? Peter denied Jesus 3 times around a charcoal fire. So Jesus has intentionally set up this exact scene on purpose. And when Jesus asked Peter if he loves him more than these, some people think that Jesus may have been referring to the boats and the fishing gear, symbolizing Peter's old way of life. So some people think that he's asking, do you love me more than your old way of life? But I think that Jesus is recalling Peter's own words. See, at the Last Supper, Jesus tells Peter that he's going to deny him not just once, but 3 times. And Peter overconfidently says, even if the rest of these guys, even if the rest of these wimps deny you, I'll never deny you. But then what happens? As far as we know, Peter is the only one to deny Jesus. At least that was recorded. So everything is set up here to take Peter back to his failed words and his failed actions. Now, why does Jesus ask Peter and repeat the same question 3 times? Why make a point of it? Isn't once enough? Like, Peter, do you love me? Yes. Like, why continue to ask the same question? Peter already says that he loves Jesus. What Jesus is doing here, he's not trying to be mean. He's not trying to humiliate Peter. That's not the way of Jesus. Jesus doesn't point his finger at you to accuse you or to shame you or to guilt you. Rather, what we see Jesus doing here is showing his love for Peter. Now, there is possibly, a play on words here, because when Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" the first 2 times, he uses a different word for love, and then the last time, in all of Peter's responses, he uses a different word for love. And so you got agape love, which oftentimes people refer to as sacrificial love, and Peter's answers, and Jesus' last question to Peter is, "Do you love me?" But they're using the word phileo, right? More of a brotherly love. But is agape or is phileo a lesser love than agape? Like, is phileo down here and is agape down up here? Maybe not, because phileo was used by John, number one, to talk about God the Father's love for his son Jesus, right? So why would that be a lesser love? Number two, John uses the word phileo, that love for the Father's love for us, his children. And then lastly, that word phileo is used for Jesus' love for us as well. So I'm not necessarily convinced that there is something going on in a wordplay with the 2 different types of love. More importantly, I think, what is Jesus actually doing here? What is he doing here? He's fully restoring Peter, who denied him 3 times. Peter even denied Jesus to a little girl. It wasn't even like it was a bunch of scary guys who were out to get him. He denied Jesus to a humble, harmless servant girl. He was fearful, and then he went into hiding. Imagine how bad and how broken Peter must have felt. He denied even knowing Jesus. How was Jesus ever going to use him? Could Jesus ever trust him again? Was he just worthless now after what he had done? But what's happening here in John chapter 21 is, in his love, Jesus restores Peter fully, so that there's no question of where Peter stands with Jesus or what Jesus thinks of him. And this restoration, this full restoration, was what Peter needed. You see, for the cowardly, for the weak, the fearful, the overconfident, for the failures, to all those who will come to Jesus, he will fully restore. Not on any basis of what we have done, but on what he's done for us. And so your failures, if you're sitting here listening to this saying that, I feel like, Peter, God can never use me because I've done these things in my life, your failures are not reasons why God cannot use you. In fact, it almost seems like failures are almost somewhat of a prerequisite. That should give us a lot of hope that God can use, and he does use, the vilest and the worst of us. Because it's not about us, it points to God's incredible grace towards us. And God also doesn't use you despite your failures. He doesn't say, well, I guess I don't really have any other good options. No one else is available right now, so I guess I'll just have to go with him or her. It's not my first choice, but what other choice do I have? Right? God uses you because of your failures. And you're supposed to recognize that it is all about his grace and not about you. And so if you show up to heaven on the last day, on the judgment day before God, and God asks you, why should I let you into heaven? Why should I let you in here to be with me? And your response is, well, I tried to do my best. I tried to be a good person, and I tried to do good things. I know I came up short sometimes, but I try my best to be good and live the best life that I could. If you answer that way, you've got it all wrong. The only acceptable answer and what will get you into heaven is a response where you say to God, because Jesus paid the price for me. And on that basis alone, I am allowed in. Now, God doesn't save you or love you based on your own merit. And neither does he use you based on your own merit. It's not about how much or how strongly we love Jesus that sustains our faith. It's Jesus' perfect love for us that holds us up. Because we're all going to fail. We'll all fail. But his love never fails. It never will. It doesn't change based on how good or bad you are. It is constant. And you see the purpose in Jesus' restoration of Peter. What's he tell Peter to do? He tells him to feed or tend my sheep. And that is the fruit of truly loving Jesus. You cannot say that you love Jesus if you do not love the church. if you are disconnected from the church, if you're not engaged in the church family in meaningful ways with your life. And that looks different for everyone. But everyone should be in some form or fashion, be in community, serving, giving, using their gifts to build up the church. Verse 20, Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. The one who also had leaned back against him during the supper and said, "Lord, who is it that is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about this man?" Jesus said to him, "If it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me." So the saying spread abroad among the brothers that this disciple was not to die. Yet Jesus did not say to him he was not to die, but if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? Lastly, number 4, our freedom is in Jesus' call to faithfully follow him. Our freedom is in Jesus' call to faithfully follow him. Basically, Jesus here is saying to Peter, why don't you just mind your own business? Mind your own business. Here's Peter with the resurrected Jesus. He's eaten with him. He's fellowshipping with him. He's been fully restored by him. He's then invited to go on a walk with Jesus, and Peter's distracted by John, who is following behind him. Why isn't Peter just enjoying and being consumed by being with Jesus in this moment? So many people, they care so much and are so distracted and derailed from what God is doing in their own lives because they're so focused on other people. Listen, there is a problem if we are more experts on what God is doing or needs to do in other people's lives than our own. There are too many people who are hyper-focused on other people in a bad way. Oh, that person needs to do this, or they need to do that. I can't believe they think that. They need to grow in maturity. They have so many problems. They really need to change, or they have what's coming to them. God is going to teach them a lesson. And Jesus tells us, why are we so concerned with the speck in someone else's eye when we have a plank in our own? You see, sometimes the best thing to do is to be faithful to what God has called you to instead of getting all up in other people's business. And I'm not talking about being in each other's lives. Right? We need to do that. We're supposed to one another. We're supposed to love one another. We're supposed to serve one another, do life together, be on mission together. But what I'm talking about here is different. I'm talking about being so overcritical and judgmental and concerned about what other people are or aren't doing that you can't be faithful to what God has called you to. And you don't need to compare yourself to other people. They have their calling and you have yours. It's not all going to be the same, and that's okay. You can be secure and faithful to Jesus' calling in your life, and that's all that you need. So I don't know who needs to hear it today, but some people need to mind their own business and just follow Jesus faithfully. Verse 24. This is a disciple who is bearing witness about these things, and who has written these things. We know that his testimony is true. Now there are also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself cannot contain the books that would be written. So there was so much more to Jesus' ministry. Sometimes I wonder, what else did he do during his life here? Like, what incredible things did he do? Like, if he were here with me today, I would ask him, Jesus, could I have some Bojangles? It's my favorite fried chicken in America. Like, and then boom, it just happens. Kind of like the feeding of the 5,000 with the fish and the bread. He just multiplies. It comes out of nowhere. What other awesome things did Jesus do during his ministry? But here's what's so awesome. I don't have to wonder, and you don't have to wonder about all the other things that he did. Because the ones that we have, the stories that we have recorded for us in the Gospels, were given to us on purpose. And they present to us such a clear purpose and a picture of who Jesus was and what he accomplished through his life. You see, all of John's gospel, as we get to the end, is all about Jesus. It's not about us at all. We're not the main characters. Everything is about God's love for us, his work for us. And so the message of John's gospel is, come, behold and believe. Behold and believe Jesus, the Son of God. the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Because he lived a perfect life you could not live. He died the death that we deserved on the cross for us in our place. And he rose again after being buried for 3 days, defeating sin and death forever. And he invites us to believe in him and to join with him in his mission to save the world. And so if you're a follower of Jesus like Peter, then like Peter, Jesus has fully restored you for his mission. After you put your faith in Jesus, you can't just go back to your old life like nothing ever happened. If that's what your life looks like now, that there's no life change whatsoever, if people around you and even non-believers can't tell that there is something different about you, the way that you love, the way that you forgive and serve and are generous, the way that you reflect and share Jesus, if you can't discern that there is something different about you, then you have to ask yourself whether you truly believe in him. Because there is no other appropriate response to what Jesus has done for us than to say, God, here's my life. It's all yours. You've loved me, you've redeemed me, you've made me a son and daughter, and you are worthy of my life. Everything I am, everything I have is all for you. It's all for your glory. If your mission was to come to save sinners and to make them your sons and daughters by laying down your life, then I'm going to take up that same mission, and that's going to be my mission too. And I'll lay my life down for it as well. What greater honor is there than that? That we are invited into God's life-changing work, his mission to save all the nations. It is a privilege for us. If you're here this morning and you're not a follower of Jesus, maybe this is your first or second time in church ever. The message of the gospel is very clear. It is very simple. It is that Jesus has done everything necessary to save you. And it's a free gift that he offers to you, and you only have to believe. You only have to receive it. And once you do, you'll find that the hope and the life and the joy that you have been looking for, the joy that you were created for, is found in God alone. And he will restore you fully back to himself. And you'll have his presence for all of eternity. And that's what Jesus is inviting you into today.